I rise to speak on this bill with some difficulty, or at best, some awkwardness. As the chair of the Finfish inquiry, which is yet to report to this place, I and other members of that committee are placed in a difficult situation in engaging with this bill. While the subject matter of this bill and the terms of reference of the inquiry do not directly correlate, they can certainly be seen to be connected and have direct relevance to each other. Because of this, I've felt the need to seek advice on how to proceed with this bill to ensure that I will not put the work of the committee in jeopardy or compromise its integrity or value. I appreciate the advice that I've received and have considered my options, and I know that other committee members will likewise be considering their options. So in light of that, Mr President, I would like to move that debate on this bill stand adjourned. I would like to seek the agreement of the chamber to adjourn debate on the bill, and I'd like to speak to that now to explain why I seek that course of action and the support of the chamber for it. As all here will be well aware, the Finfish inquiry has been in progress for some time. I know that the time it is taking has been a matter of some interest and no doubt some frustration for many people who are very interested in the conclusion of this inquiry and the report that it will make to this place. As chair of the inquiry, I take full responsibility for the conduct of the inquiry. I regard the lengthy duration of the inquiry to be perhaps far from ideal, and I understand that people have a keen interest in it concluding. Those who have been in this place for a while will appreciate that some inquiries can be very lengthy, especially if they're broad in their scope or complex in their topic matter. And this inquiry is both of those. Members may be aware that the evidence received by the inquiry included over 220 submissions and at least 10 days of hearings. That is material which is in the public domain. It's available on the parliamentary website. Mr President, that's a great deal of evidence to be carefully considered. Further, the inquiry covers topic matters which all of us would readily recognise is a matter of conversation and at times contention in the community. And because of that, the committee have regarded it as particularly important to undertake the work with care and attention. In addition, we've faced some practical challenges, not of our making, which have caused delays, namely the shutdown period for some months early in the pandemic in 2020, and then the prorogation of Parliament for the purposes of an early election in 2021, during which time the committee was formally, of course, disbanded in the March and then reformed at the beginning of July. I note these factors not in order to make excuses for the duration of the inquiry, because I do not believe that excuses are required. I note them as explanation of the context in which we find ourselves now. While it may not be readily visible publicly, the committee members have been working diligently and extensively on this inquiry, particularly across the summer parliamentary sitting break. I thank the members of the committee for this work, the time and the care that they are devoting to undertaking it. We are very close to concluding this inquiry and reporting to this chamber. With the agreement of my fellow committee members, I can confirm that we expect to table our report in this place next month. It's on that basis that I seek this adjournment of debate on this bill for this short delay until after the inquiry has reported. And let me briefly explain why I see that as an appropriate course of action to seek your support, the members' support for today. Mr President, there are plainly matters relating to this bill that cross over with matters covered by the inquiry, including matters to do with the Tasmanian regulatory system for finfish farming and various areas of particular public concern. If this debate proceeds at this time, before the inquiry has reported, I'm concerned that it will be difficult for committee members to fully engage with this bill and do our job in this place of scrutinising and voting on it. And let me share those concerns in a little more detail. One risk is that in engaging with this bill, in second reading speeches, in questions on clauses and in our final vote, The contributions of committee members will be or could be seen to potentially allude to, indicate or telegraph a view of the committee, thereby undermining the integrity and the value of the yet-to-be-tabled report. Another issue is that the committee work is shared work. As members would be well aware, committee work is negotiated between all members, and decisions, including findings and recommendations, are a result of that negotiated shared process. Members will be well aware, of course, that during the inquiry, prior to tabling a report, committee members are especially careful to avoid engaging in individual commentary or public statements that may reflect on or be at odds with the shared negotiated view of the committee that is developing during the committee process. My concern here is that if committee members are to engage with this bill as individual members of this place, as would be appropriate in the conduct of our role scrutinising and voting on legislation, we will risk having to discuss or allude to matters in our individual capacity here, which may be at odds with the shared view of the committee on similar matters that may come forth through the report. Should that happen, it will risk undermining that solidarity of committee work and the ultimate report of the committee to this place and publicly. So, Mr President, where does that leave us then as members of the Finfish Committee if the vote on the bill is to continue today? The debate on the bill is to continue today. Of course, each member will make up their own consideration, their own minds. They're taking into consideration all options and matters before them, and each will decide on an appropriate course of action for themselves. My personal consideration of the options before me, particularly as chair of the Finfish inquiry, lead me to see only one appropriate course of action. If debate continues on the bill today, I will be considerably constrained in my discussion of the bill in a second reading contribution. I would make a contribution that I would regard to be less comprehensive than I would otherwise make at a time post-reporting by the committee. I would frame today that second reading contribution as carefully as possible so that it did not provide a personal view of my own or an indication of how I would, as an individual member, vote on this bill. Members will recognise that this is not a usual way of framing a second reading contribution, as it would normally be the context in which members would share their deliberations on the bill at hand and often provide an indication of their support or otherwise, or at least detail the factors that remain in question to determine where they land on their support of the bill. Further, it's my assessment that it would not be appropriate for me to vote on this bill today. So I would make the choice to absent myself from the chamber for any vote taken. These are, of course, my choices to make, and I take full responsibility for them, but I'm sharing my thoughts on these matters with members now to explain as fully and as plainly as possible why I'm seeking to adjourn the debate on the bill until after the report of the inquiry has been tabled in this place, and those sorts of constrictions that I and perhaps other members of the committee may feel won't be present. I hope that members will recognise the difficulty presented and see it as a minimal accommodation to support a short delay on this debate to fully avoid those difficulties and provide members of the inquiry with an unencumbered opportunity to engage with this bill as well we should in this place. So I would like members, or I would seek members' support for an adjournment of the debate.
The question is that the debate stand adjourned. The honourable member for Mersey.
Thank you, Mr. President.